Welcome to the unvenue. Welcome.
We're gonna have a
Stranger, last stranger, stranger.
gonna ask if we were gonna do another slow intro thing, but
Another slow intro.
I've been recording.
Oh, this whole time,
Yeah.
of course you have. Of course you have.
I was gonna start out with the song though, so perfect thinking.
Welcome back to We'll Name This Podcast Later. We still do not have a name.
Still don't have a name. I looked it up. Apparently, I'll Name This Podcast Later is a podcast by Joe Budden.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So we might have to change this at some point.
No. He changed it. He finally picked a name,
Oh,
and
he
it's
picked a name.
the Joe Budden Podcast.
What, terrible. What a terrible.
I mean, he ended up picking a name, but it's a great placeholder if you don't have a name yet.
Absolutely.
But welcome to episode 3. This week, as we record this on what day is it today? Thursday.
It's Thursday.
My God, I should know what that is. This week it's Cabaret.
Cabaret, the cabaret, the cabaret.
Now, this was your pick.
Yes.
Why?
What was my thought process? I was torn between a few different choices. I was torn between a few movies that I felt differently about. I was thinking, like, what are movies that are important to me? What are movies that are important to my taste in movies? One of them was like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which hit me at the exact right time when I was a teenager. But I feel differently about that movie now than I did back then. Which I do want to talk about at some point. I want to examine that sort of dynamic. What was another one? There were a couple others. One of them was Burn After Reading, this Coen Brothers movie. There were a few ones. But then, at some point, I thought, what's important to how I like movies? Musicals. Musicals are important to how I like movies.
Really?
Yes.
Ah.
I was raised on musicals. My mom loves musicals, and my dad likes musicals too.
That makes sense.
Actually, he showed me Cabaret for the first time.
Oh shit! How old were you?
It was this year.
Oh. Wait, what?
Just last year.
So you hadn't seen it before that?
Hadn't seen it before, no.
Okay. Because this was my first time.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd never seen it before.
Great. But yeah, I was thinking of musicals. I was thinking, okay, what's the movie musical, Hollywood movie musical? It's The Wizard of Oz. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's great. And I'm like, but do I want to watch The Wizard of Oz? I love it, but it's also kind of crap, but it's important and a classic.
Is it crap?
But, I mean, it's very 30s. The effects are bad. The sets aren't very
Granted,
great.
yeah.
It's just dated. I love it. It's a great movie, but it's been eclipsed in so many ways by so many other things since then. It's historical. And then I thought, the other Judy Garland movies, A Star is Born, her version of A Star is Born would be great to talk about at some point. James Mason's great in that. And then I thought, wait a minute. Nazi salutes are in the news these days.
Oh, of course.
Judy Garland's daughter was in a movie with Nazis. So that's how I landed on Cabaret. And I was like, yeah, Cabaret. I want to watch that again. I'd like to talk about it.
I am going to admit, you put so much thought into your choice.
Yeah.
Mine is just Russian roulette. It's just Russian roulette, which is why our next pick is... It's along the... We'll get into it, but it's along the musical line. But it's a Russian roulette pick. So, because the only thing I was aware of about Cabaret was the opening song.
Yes. Classic.
Which is a classic. And funnily enough, when I was doing A-levels, I did drama studies. And we had to devise our own play. And one of the framing devices we had was sort of similar to the Cabaret vibe, where you had the MC and the story would sort of happen around, and the MC was like this weird, wacky. I played the MC because no one wanted to play him, and I was like, yeah, I've seen a clip of the MC guy. I'm just gonna imitate him. But that was sort of my only interaction with it. It didn't go any further. I didn't know they were Nazis.
Okay.
I was. Is it bad to say I was pleasantly surprised?
How do you mean pleasantly? What part?
As in, it was deeper than I thought it was going to be.
Yes. Yes.
Way deeper than I thought it was going to be. To be honest, I don't know what I thought Cabaret was, but I guess in my head it was always about, and it's about a musical, and there's an MC guy and whatever they sing, whatever. That's it.
Yeah.
But it goes deeper than that. Way deeper than I expected.
Way deeper.
And I don't know what's been happening. It's almost like the zeitgeist has been Nazified.
Yeah.
Attack on Titan, Nazis. I didn't expect that. This, Nazis.
Now, admittedly, Attack on Titan was ahead of its time in some ways because that manga was finished a few years ago. I mean, Nazis have been in the news for almost 10 years at least, so.
Yeah, but your government's going hard on the Nazis, though.
It's going full Nazi these days.
Which is why it's a little bit weird that I'm watching this and I'm like, fuck. It's happening again.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Sure. Cabaret, brief summary for anyone who hasn't seen it, watch it. It's a great movie. I've never actually seen the stage musical either, so the movie is my only point
I
of reference.
don't want to watch the stage musical after this.
There's a version on in London right now. But yeah, I've never been that interested in seeing the stage musical, especially having seen the movie, because this movie is so good and is so nuanced and so intimate that the stage musical, I'm sure it would be really fun, but what this movie makes me feel, I don't think I could get from anything else. It's the 1920s, the Weimar Republic era, Berlin, and our boy Brian has just moved to Berlin to be an English teacher, an English tutor. He meets Sally Bowles, who is a performer at the Kit Kat Club, which is a cabaret club, nightclub, variety club, performing nights. They meet, they form a friendship, and eventually a romance, and this movie is just sort of a slice of life about these characters in this very specific era of Germany, German history.
That's a great phrase.
Yeah?
A slice of life. Because I think if you've heard us talk about, there's Nazis, and you might think, he goes deep into it. But actually, it's in the background.
It's all in the background. It's very sinister, and you feel the weight of it, but it's never at the forefront. Interestingly, this is a musical, but the musicalness of it isn't at the forefront.
No.
This isn't some big grand musical story. The story, the characters, the music is completely superfluous in a sense. All the songs are completely diegetic, so this isn't a movie where characters suddenly break out into song to explain their feelings. And I love movies that do that, but this isn't one of those. All the music in this movie is performances that are happening in the world of the movie. So it's all very grounded. It's all very intimate. And yeah, it's just about these two people and their relationship in this changing world.
There was a number that Sally Boyles sang.
Yeah?
I'm forgetting what it's called now.
I have the song list up.
Do you have the song list?
Yes.
I think it was her second song.
Maybe This Time?
Yeah.
Maybe This Time.
Yes. And I think someone performed it whilst we were in drama school, but I'm forgetting who it was.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
And that was the first time I'd heard it. But then hearing it again. And we should mention that Sally Boyles is obviously played by Liza Minnelli, Judy Garland's daughter.
Yeah.
And I was so enthralled by her performance.
She's just amazing.
Because there's this freedom that she has in her performance and in her work that sort of it feels authentic, but also feeds well into the character. This sort of what's the word?
Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Yeah,
I had that in my notes.
Pixie Dream Girl.
This character is the epitome of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. She's all over the place. She's bouncing around between subjects. She's impulsive, but she's also just amazing to behold. But Liza Minnelli's performance takes that sort of character trope, which would be just a caricature in lesser hands. She takes it and makes it into such a real person. I wrote down somewhere that at least I think we've all known someone like Sally Bowles in this movie, someone who is so entranced with the idea of being bohemian and being artistic and being free in life that it becomes all they're focused on, and it actually it means they're not entirely free in life. They're beholden to the idea of what it means to be free.
Oh man, let me tell you, it made me, when I watch movies or TV shows, I always have this thing where there can be a character, and whatever the character's motivation is, I sort of look at that through my own lens of like, how does that relate to me? Not all the time, but sometimes certain characters' motivations, you sort of go, ooh, that, I connect with that. I understand that.
Yeah.
And there's something quite tragic about her character, which is she wants to be a star.
Yeah.
But it comes from a place of wanting to be loved.
Yes. Yes.
And when she has Brian, who is, in my opinion, I think that he does have love for her.
Oh, yeah, so much.
But when towards the end, when they go their separate ways and she's still carrying on this journey of still wanting to be a star, there was a part of me that went, you could have had the love that you've been searching for. Yeah. The love that you cannot get from your dad, he can give you. But she's still so stubborn. And then linking back to myself.
Yeah.
Do you ever ask yourself, right, how stubborn can you be?
Sure, yeah.
Like, can you get to a point where you accept, like, that thing I want might not work out or isn't going to work out. Let me pivot into a different way. Do you ever get that moment? Have you had that moment?
Yeah, I think so. Thinking how far, what's the point at which I'm willing to stop?
That's it.
Because it's not about, that's where stubbornness comes from, and I think that's where passion drives people. It's not about how far are you willing to take something, it's when are you willing to stop. And sometimes that's never.
And Sally is so good. She could be a star.
Yeah.
She could be a star. But will it happen? Chances are it might not happen.
Probably not. The Cabaret, the musical, is based on a book.
Oh, yes, I read this, yeah.
Yes, by Christopher Isherwood, who was a man who spent some time in Berlin in 1929 and met a woman named Jean Ross, who was the inspiration for Sally Bowles. Now, I can't remember what happened to them, But obviously, very soon after the events of this movie, Hitler rises to power, and Weimar Republic Germany is completely changed. Weimar Republic Germany, for some historical context, was a kind of a bastion of freedom and arts and liberalism in the West. The very first trans gender reassignment surgeries were performed in the Weimar Republic.
Oh my God.
Yeah, in the 1920s. It was at the forefront of like gay culture and queer culture and science, studying psychology and these various aspects of human life.
It's funny you mentioned that because there's the shot of there's a character
Yeah.
in the club.
Yes.
And you get a shot of them in the distance. And at first when I saw the shot, I was like, that looks a little bit masculine, but it's woman,
Yes,
but
she's
masculine.
presenting woman.
Then when you see Brian, this is early in the film, you see Brian go to the toilet, you know, he's doing his thing. Then she walks in,
walks up to the
stands
urinal.
next to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, what the fuck? And then he takes a peek,
Yeah.
and then he walks out. But it was the shot at the end
Yeah.
where he sort of smiled.
Yeah, what I love about his character is that he is, obviously this is, whole culture is a shock to him. He's this educated boy from Cambridge in England, you know, very prim and proper, but he's exposed to this world of total freedom and kind of hedonism, and it fascinates him, it intrigues him. I think at the beginning it kind of amuses him. He's always got this wry little smile on his face. But he's fascinated by it, and he's completely accepting of it, and he ends up loving it there.
To be honest, none of the characters had that you followed throughout the film. There was no character that had any sort of bigotry, which was interesting because, like we said, in the background, you've got the Nazis, but none of the characters we're following have any bigotry. It's almost like they're just like, yeah, this is life.
It's life.
You know, it is what it is. And the Fritz.
Yes.
Oh,
Fritz.
Fritz.
Such a great character.
Fritz, who you meet him, and he's sort of like this big time. You think he's this big time businessman. He's in the Kit Kat Club. He's trying to get with Sally. Brian shows up. You know, it's like he's in his way, but he doesn't sort of. It's not like that thing where guys, this thing of like, I don't know if you've experienced it, but when a guy is trying to get with a girl, then another guy comes up, and then it's like competition. It's almost like that alpha male thing of like, that's my competition. I need to knock him down. But they actually become friends.
They become close friends. Brian starts giving him English lessons. I do love their first meeting. Sally calls Brian over and it's like, this is Fritz, he's a businessman, and I was thinking maybe you could help him out so that he can, you know, chat up attractive English women. And they're chatting for a little bit, and Fritz says to Brian, we will not sleep on each other. Is that right? Is that sleep with each other? And no, that's fine. So right out the gate, he's just like, I'm not into you. That's not what this is. We can be chill with each other.
And there was something with Sally where she was helping Brian just survive in Berlin.
Yeah.
She understood the hassle. One of the things that I was questioning is her dad is supposed to be an ambassador.
Yes.
But she is completely broke.
I'm not sure. She says that at one point when they're hanging out with all the rich folks. I'm not sure if he is an ambassador or if she's making that up or
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like,
yeah.
Is he really?
Whatever he is, he clearly travels a lot.
Yeah.
But he also is very frugal, which he's supposed to meet her and he stands her up. And she's very depressed, and she's talking with Brian about it, and she says that she got this telegram from him, and it was the maximum amount of words you can send in a telegram without getting charged for it. And she says, honestly, if I had leprosy, he would send. I wrote it down. Where is it? Yes, she says if I had leprosy, she said that he'd send a telegram saying, "Gee, kid, tough. Sincerely hope nose doesn't fall off. Love," which is 10 words exactly. So he's giving the bare minimum, literally the bare minimum amount of attention to her that he can.
Which goes back to that relationship that she has with her father, and her not being able to have the love or the attention. And it's the classic story of any woman who doesn't sort of get that from their from a male figure. They'll look for it elsewhere. And then you see her at the Kit Kat Club, which, if I'm gonna be honest with you,
Yeah.
I did not want to objectify the women.
Sure.
I didn't want to.
Okay.
However, at some point, I was like, ain't it funny how beauty standards have changed?
Sure.
Because there used to be a time when skinny and small was like the it thing. And maybe that's coming back now. But then we moved into a time where like women wanted to be big and, you know.
About them thick bitches.
You said it, Max. Okay, they want to be thick.
Yeah,
Thick with a not thick. Thick.
3 C's.
3 C's right in the throat. And it's just sort of changed. And I was watching the women, and there wasn't any other female performer, was there? That we saw.
At the various performers at the Kit Kat Club are female. Some of them are trans.
Yeah, but I mean, as in
Like the main one.
the main
Sally. No.
yes.
Sally's the only one who gets like big speaking.
Which says a
the
lot
star.
about her talent in terms of being in the club. And there was what was the number? You said you have the list of the songs. There was a number that she did with the MC.
Money Makes the World Go Round.
Money makes the world go round, the world go round, the world go round. Money makes the world go round, the world go round, the world go round. Oh, I love that song.
It's such a great number. They do it so well. The MC is played by Joel Grey, who is a very successful Broadway star from the time. He's done a whole bunch of stuff. He originated the part on Broadway. The way they perform this number is so characterful, but also like when they get really close to each other and it's like sexy and you feel the tension between them. It's just masters of their craft.
And there was this thing where, because now you understand Sally's motivation. Yes, she wants to be a star, but there's a part of her that just wants to be around money.
Yes.
Being around money, making sure that she has a place to stay, and then that's where the Baron enters.
Baron Max.
Baron Max. My God.
This fucker.
This guy, I could not. There was a shot where it was the three of them, and they were hugging.
Yes.
And I was like, huh, that's interesting. And I had an inclination to go, are they going to have a threesome? But then you find out later on when Sally reveals that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Brian is going, is it mine or is it the Baron? Because they've just spent the weekend together at the Baron's house. Some freaky shit was going on. And she's like, I don't know.
She doesn't know.
And then Brian reveals, I was fucking him too.
Yeah, those are two slightly different scenes. I do love his reaction when he finds out that she doesn't know whose baby it is, because he's like, okay, it's with you. I'll raise it anyway.
Which I would never do.
No?
You think if my girlfriend comes to me and tells me she's pregnant, but she doesn't know whose it is, and I'm thinking, oh, it's that guy who's been sending us on this lavish trips and buying us all this stuff.
Yeah.
But you don't know who the father is. No, I'm not raising that kid.
Well,
Fuck that.
But what if you were sleeping with the guy too? Does that change it at all?
I wouldn't be sleeping with the guy. Fuck that shit, man.
It's that whole dynamic is so interesting because Maximilian shows up, woos them with money, and takes Sally out shopping and takes them to fancy restaurants and invites them to his giant fucking mansion in the countryside.
So big.
It's disgustingly big. Like, I wrote down this display of wealth compared to the slums that we've been seeing in the rest of the movie. It's like, this is offensive. This is terrible.
Was he Jewish?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
At least I don't think that was mentioned at all.
Yeah, because it wasn't mentioned, and I wasn't sure because he leaves to go to Argentina at the end, and we
Yes.
never see him again.
Yes, I think he flees. I'm not sure he's Jewish, but I do think he flees the rise of Nazism.
Which is funny because when Brian and the Baron first meet, they see the Nazis.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually a shot of somebody shot dead in the street.
Somebody's been killed by the Nazis.
And then the Baron says, the Nazis are no problem. They'll kick out the communists and we'll control them.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, a bit further into the film, there's this, unfortunately, it was a beautiful song.
Oh, God.
But
Tomorrow Belongs to Me.
I was listening to it, and it's, during that scene, you're just seeing about half a face. It's a young boy singing this song. You don't quite see anything else. You're seeing the audience listening to the boy. And it's this beautiful song. And as I was listening to it, I was like, is this a Nazi song? But I was enjoying it. I was like, this is a beautiful song.
It's beautiful. He's singing it great.
But then as it builds up and you start to see the boy's face, you start to see what's on his arm,
Yeah.
you start to see other members and the audience as well, you go, oh shit, it's a Nazi song.
That whole scene it's so well done. They're at this traditional German festival. Everyone's got the lederhosen on and everyone's having a great time. And yeah, this kid starts singing and gradually the people start joining in. And the camera's bouncing between all their faces. It's bouncing between these young faces, these older faces, these people. What struck me, a lot of the people singing the song weren't singing happily. They didn't have smiles on their faces. They had like defiant,
Yes.
proud, almost scowls on their faces that this song to them, tomorrow is for them. It's not for the other people. It's for them.
Yes.
This is them claiming the future. And we cut every now and then to this old guy who he would have been too old to fight in World War I.
He's done for.
He saw the 1800s Germany, the rise of the various things in history, and he is not smiling at all. And he's
Because he
looking around
knows.
him. He knows exactly what's going on. He's
He
looking
knows
around him.
exactly what's coming and exactly what's happening. And then the Baron and Brian leave. And Brian just asks him, you still think you can control them? Because it's slowly throughout the film, this thing in the background is building. And it's quite interesting. It came out in the 70s, so people already knew what had happened.
25 years fresh of the war.
As us, knowing history, knowing what happened, whenever you watch something like that, it's the dread
Yes.
of like, you know what's coming.
I wrote down about that song that I have never seen a song that is so happy and so energetic, and the song is objectively a hopeful song, and the scene is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's haunting and it is chilling.
Yeah.
Because I know exactly what that energy is. You can see it all over the news these days. If you go to a small town festival in America,
Oh shit, really?
You can feel, I mean, it's not explicit Nazism, but you can feel that people are looking for something to hold on to for the future. And a lot
Okay,
of
let me
people
ask you this,
Yeah.
right? Because you're closer to it than I am. What is this fascination with fascism?
Fascism, by design, works really well on human psychology because it's all about creating an enemy to fight against. If things are going wrong in your life, that's not your fault. That's not some abstract fault of the economy and the way the world is. That is a group of people that is trying to destroy you and your way of life. And the solution to make your life better is to make their life worse and get rid of them. It just works on very base aspects of human psychology. It's got strong iconology and strong rhetoric, and it draws people in. It makes complicated truths simple. I think that's what it is at its core. It makes the complicated, scary world that we all live in suddenly seem very, very simple.
Because the thing that's I don't know if we've spoken about this.
Yeah.
But the thing that I find terrifying about right now in the Western world is that you're seeing a lot of that happening, a lot of countries moving towards fascism.
Yep.
And there's no one, well, I say there's no one trying to stop it, but it's almost like we're letting it happen.
I mean, just the way the media covered Elon Musk's Nazi salute, which was very clearly a Nazi salute. The way the media covered it, and it's like, people are saying it's a Nazi salute. They're just presenting it as if, like, this is something that's happened. What does everyone make of it? Is it a Nazi salute? Isn't it? We don't know. We have no opinion on it. It's goddamn infuriating because so much of the attitude in media coverage and from governments is just, yeah, letting it happen. It's just being like, I don't know, is it Nazis? Isn't it? We don't know. We're just moving forward. And it's exactly like what happens in this movie. It's at the very beginning of this movie, the owner of the Kit Kat Club throws a Nazi out.
Yes.
There's this Nazi kid coming in, causing a ruckus, and the owner kicks him right out. And then a couple scenes later, a group of Nazis are beating the owner half to death.
And then at the end of the film,
Yep.
you see the Nazis sat in the audience.
Almost the whole crowd is made up of Nazis. It's movie making talk. The opening and closing shots of this movie are focusing on this mirror wall that the club has. And it's kind of distorted and you can't quite tell what it is at first. And the opening shot is fading into it. It's black and white, and then we fade in with color, and then suddenly the MC appears. And the MC throughout the whole thing is this he's like a sort of magical character because he's kind of in on the narrative that's happening, and his face keeps cutting in and winking towards the camera throughout, and he appears at some very choice moments, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But then the closing shot of the movie is, again, he's giving his same speech that he's given at the beginning, and then it pans over to the mirror wall again, and as it's panning over this time, yeah, like almost all the crowd is Nazis. And that's how the movie ends. They've crept their way in, and now they're here to stay.
Let's talk about the MC.
Sure.
You know, sometimes you watch a performance and you wonder, how would I do it?
Yeah.
This is one of those performances where you go, I'll do it differently.
Yeah.
Because it's actually brilliant on so many levels.
Mm-hmm.
Physically, vocally, it's astounding to watch. It's almost like clown work.
Yeah.
No, not almost. It is clown work.
The whole thing is this projected character, projecting the emotions that he wants the audience to feel. It's ironic, but it's yeah, very, very clown-like. It's coming from that truth inside.
But there's something so terrifying at times.
Sinister.
It's actually so terrifying. It's the truth.
His makeup is done so that he looks kind of like the devil at
Yeah.
some points. He looks like this mischievous devil that's just playing.
You
with
never see him without makeup.
No.
He always has the makeup. And then there's no other, even the shots when he's backstage with Sally getting ready to go on, it's just with makeup. And he does this thing with his tongue a lot, which links back to that sinisterism. Is that a word, sinisterism?
Sinisterism. I'm not sure if that's a word.
That's
but
not a
anyway,
word,
I
but
know
we
what you
just
mean.
made it up.
Yeah.
Sinisterism of the character. And there's some. What was there was a moment in the film when Sally's getting ready to go on.
Yeah.
And I think it's around the point when she's just revealed that she's pregnant. She wants to have an abortion,
Yeah.
and she's not quite sure what to do. And the MC's next to her and just looks at her, almost as if to say, "Oh, like, how can I articulate this?
Yeah.
How can I articulate this? It was almost as if to say, I know what you're going to do in some way. Or at least that's how it felt to me.
Sure.
Like, oh, that thing you're thinking about, yeah, I know it. I know it. And I don't know what the abortion law, well, from the film, it sort of appears as if it was extremely hard to get an abortion.
I'm pretty sure it would have been illegal, but of course, in this great counterculture of the time, there would have been various ways to get it done. Not safe ways, but you could get it done. Like Sally at one point talks about that, she says the doctor that she saw about her pregnancy says that he could do it for her. It's just going to cost a pretty penny. Goodbye, my fur coat. That you got from Max.
But the performances from the MC were every single number was purposeful. There's what's the song with all the dancers?
The one that's just like a dance number going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Maybe it's called Tiller Girls. I think that's the one. It's just a dance number. It's a great dance number. There's all these streamers on the stage, and it feels like a party. The MC's in drag, and it's this great dance number. And as that's happening, a group of Nazis are breaking into the estate of this wealthy Jewish family and this character, Natalia, that Fritz is in love with, and they kill her dog.
Ooh, Natalia.
Yeah, they kill her dog as this dance is happening, and then suddenly the lighting turns a bit darker, and they're all in these soldier uniforms, and they're goose-stepping around the stage, and the audience is laughing their asses off at it, but we know what's been going on. Oh, there it is. I also just want to mention right after Tomorrow Is For Me, right after that number is, we just get a flash of the MC's face, smiling right at the camera. He is this mischievous devil that knows exactly the path that everyone is on. Natalia.
What did you think about Natalia?
She's fun. She's a fun little character. She's from a different world as everyone else. She's taking English lessons from Brian, and the first time we meet her, she walks into the room with Fritz and Sally already there, and Brian tries to kick them out, but they're like, no, we'll stay around, we'll hang out, because Fritz wants to get in with her so that he can get in with her father, because her father's very rich, and he wants to try to get a job from him. And then Sally is being defiant because it's her room, and she's also a little bit jealous of Natalia and her wealth. And as we go through the movie, Natalia, her family is Jewish. That's very specific. She is one of the wealthy Jewish families in Berlin of the time. Fritz falls in love with her. There's a great line where they're all out for a walk because they've been hanging out and taking the English lessons, and they're out for a walk in the park somewhere. And Fritz says, he's talking with Brian, and he just says, "I think I'm falling in love with her." And Brian just says, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was something, there was a theme that was running throughout the film,
Yeah.
which was unrequited love.
Yes.
Because at the beginning, Fritz and Natalia, Fritz wants to be with Natalia, and Natalia doesn't necessarily want to be with him. Mm-hmm. Brian gives Fritz the idea of he needs to pounce.
Yeah. He says it's something that Sally said, and it's like, I don't know, Sally knows a lot about these things. Pounce.
Now, when I heard that, I was like, me too. But afterwards, he sort of takes a shot, and then Natalia's talking to Sally about it. He's like, oh, and then he just grabbed me,
This passion
that just came out of him, and she wasn't attracted to him because she thought he was this square of a guy. Mm-hmm. But then that moment of passion made her change her mind, but she still doesn't feel that she can be with him.
Yeah.
Because she feels that he's only, he only wants her for the money.
For the money.
Which I was surprised that she realized. Because I thought she was stupid.
She's smart.
She is smart.
I mean, I can only imagine that being a Jewish person in Germany at that time meant that you had to understand the way the world works a little bit. You can still live in your isolated, rich bubble, but you have to understand people's motivations. In that scene when she's talking with Sally, she brings Sally to her house, and she's like, because you are a woman who has known so many men, or something like that. And she's like, I hope I don't offend you. And Sally's like, no, I find it fascinating. Please talk to me. And she asks Sally, do you think, as Fritz pounced on her, then suddenly she felt this passion well up inside her too. And she asks Sally, but is this love, or is this just fleeting passion of the body? And Sally, just hilariously, she just goes like, she shrugs, and it's like, I don't know, as long as you're having fun, right?
Which epitomizes her character.
Yeah.
Perfectly. Because I don't think she knows the difference. She doesn't care.
No, I do think she really truly is in love with Brian, but at the same time, it is kind of in a wash of, as long as you're having fun, that's the important thing about life. Life is a cabaret, old chum.
Because before Sally and Brian have sex,
yeah,
he initially rebuffs her.
Yes.
And then she throws him with, oh, you're gay. Mm-hmm. But he's like, no, just hasn't worked out for me. I've been with 3 women, hasn't worked out for me.
Been a disaster every time.
I ain't doing it. Which I actually respected him for. Because I was like, you know what, stand your ground, bro. Because you don't know where she's been.
It's partly that. I think it's also, towards the beginning, he genuinely seems to me as someone who's basically like, I don't think sex is for me. I don't think that sort of human intimacy is for me.
But it's that thing that Sally brings out of him.
Yeah.
Where suddenly, he's having sex with men too. He doesn't care. He's having fun too. So it's interesting how he starts off being prudish.
Yeah.
But then he grows as the film goes on.
Yeah. It's the scene where they get together. It's right after she's been stood up by her dad, and it's when she's talking about maybe he just doesn't care about me. Maybe I am nothing, is something she says. And he comforts her. And
Superman move. That's the Superman move. Let me tell you something, Max. If you ever want a girl, you just have to wait for the right moment. When she's down, depressed, and you just swoop in. Superman, save the day.
Well,
Trust me. Trust me on this.
okay, I'll remember that.
Superman move.
In the case of
Clark Kent.
In the case of Brian and Sally, though, I do think she's sort of infatuated with him the whole time.
Well, yeah, I think it's a British boy. He's educated. There's almost like he's different from the guys that she normally deals with.
Yeah.
But I also, the problem with that Brian has is that he's not rich.
No, he's not rich. He's just an ordinary man.
Which makes me question, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't really mind that she ended up getting the abortion.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I sort of feel like that's a financial decision. But if he was rich, if it wasn't a small cottage he was promising her, but a large mansion, I think she keeps the child.
See, I don't know. I think it maybe would have been an easier decision in the first instance of them deciding, yeah, know what, we'll keep it, we'll move to England, and we'll live out a normal life. But I do think she still would have ended up having the baby aborted and going back to the club.
She wouldn't have had a great life.
No, and
Because she is not. You know, sometimes some people aren't meant to live in a small village.
yeah,
And just have a quiet life. That's not for some people. Others, yes. But for some people, that's too small. Some people think big.
yeah,
And they want it big. And when something gets in the way, I'm not necessarily mad if someone goes, you know what, that ruins my plans. And I actually I respected her because she was honest.
yeah.
That was a moment of honesty with her and that decision that she made.
That whole scene with her and Brian, it's beautiful because she's been out partying all night and she comes in and she's doing the thing where she's kind of dismissing him. She doesn't want to open up about her emotions and things. And he just looks at her and says, "You did it, didn't you? You had the abortion." And she kind of lashes back at him, but then she explains that she just couldn't have lived that life. It wouldn't have worked out. And he is kind of destroyed about it because it means his dream of this life is gone. But then he's like, no, he understands, and he asks her, like, is there anything I can get you? Is there anything I can do for you? And she says, no, I'm just gonna sleep a while. And he's on the verge of tears and she's crying, and oh, it's a beautiful, touching scene.
There was a scene that I found funny, which was when Brian and Sally were sleeping.
Yeah.
And the Baron walked in.
Yeah.
Didn't even give a fuck. And at this point, Brian doesn't necessarily know the Baron that well.
No, he's suspicious of him. That sort of rival thing that you mentioned earlier, he is full on that when Max shows up.
But I was thinking when he was happening, I was like, this pissed me off. How dare you just walk into my room whilst I'm sleeping with my girl, and you're just gonna act like wake up. The fuck, just because you're rich?
And then he takes her out for a day of shopping.
My God, how disrespectful is that? That's disrespectful. That's disrespectful.
Entirely. The whole time, Max, from the moment he shows up, he's got this fucking mustache, and he's acting all suave and helping Sally out with the dry cleaning, and you can just tell that he's a fucker.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
When, Natalia,
Yes.
the moment when Fritz is trying to convince her to marry him, and she goes, I'm a Jew.
Yeah.
Do you not see what's happening? It can't happen. It's not about you trying to get with my father. No. It's just the fact that and that was the thing where I went, of course people were making that decision.
Yeah. she doesn't want to anchor him to her at that time.
Because you don't want to be tethered and bring someone down with you. But then we have the discovery that Fritz is a Jew as well.
He's secretly Jewish. He moved to Berlin and signed the papers that he was a Protestant so that he could get work. And he's talking with Brian, and he says, "This woman has done the worst thing possible. She's made an honest man out of me." And it's funny because you think, oh, but everything's going to be fine then. And he's all worried, like, no, because if I tell her that I haven't been honest, then she's going to throw me out into the street. And then everyone else is going to find out that I'm Jewish, and they're going to throw me out into the street. And it's like funny, but then you realize, oh God, no, he really is.
No, he's telling the truth.
This could be his life on the line.
He's telling the truth. And I had to go back and think, when did it start, this animosity towards Jews? Not throughout history, I mean specifically in Germany.
Yeah, because it's been there all throughout history. This specifically in Germany, it was after World War I, and Germany had been forced to pay all this reparation to all the countries that they
So he must
up.
have come right after World War One.
Around, probably around 1920, something like that. The economy was in shambles. Everything was pretty shitty for everyone, and Jews started becoming a scapegoat.
I understand why he kept it secret. But then he somehow musters the courage to admit this to Natalia, and they get married, and it's a beautiful wedding, and everyone's there, and that's the last scene we see of them.
It's the last scene with them, and right after that scene, we see Sally and Brian at a picnic, and Brian is all distant.
See, this is where I would love a sequel. To see what happened next with all the characters.
Yeah.
Because like you said earlier, it is a slice of life. It's a moment in time. You don't see how their stories end. It's almost like, oh, here's a brief period, and it's done. But you know that the story carries on. You know it. They haven't. I guess let's see. In the case of Fritz and Natalia, okay, maybe the story has ended. They probably get married, moved out because she had the money.
Thinking optimistically, they escaped.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
optimistically, they escaped, started a family somewhere else where it was safer.
Yeah.
Brian probably got a job in Oxford, was a professor.
Yep.
Sally, did she become a star? Did she not?
Yeah, I don't know. Optimistically, she does all right. But what almost feels in line with her character is this sort of tragic. I don't know.
Can she handle Nazi Germany?
I don't think she could. Not what it becomes, no. Because when Nazi Germany came along, they really crushed down on that whole counterculture. So that whole freedom that she loves would have been taken away. She probably would have moved back to America if that happened.
Because I think she is a survivor.
Yes.
If she were to move back to America, she would have survived in some form or fashion. Don't know what that is, but she would have survived. What that looks like, I don't actually quite know, but in my head, there's no version where she becomes a star.
That doesn't feel like what the story is for her. She's amazing character. In that scene when they're at the picnic and he's all distant and sort of thinking about what he really wants for the future, she's trying to cheer him up, and she rolls over and makes a 4-leaf clover out of a 3-leaf clover and an extra leaf, which is another just beautiful little touchstone of her character. Make luck out of anything.
Survivor. She's a survivor. There's an optimism, and I don't know if this is. As an American, I have to ask you:
Sure.
Is this an American thing? Because I've seen it. It's definitely more focused on when you watch sort of any character that's American in a world that isn't America. Like Emily in Paris or Sally.
Yeah.
There's almost like this undistinguishable, like this fire and passion that everything is gonna work out. Is that an American thing?
I think so. And I mean, I've talked with you about sort of the difference between Americans and people from other places, that I think there is something weird about what America does to the psychology of people who grow up in it. It's something to do with the American dream and something to do with how...
Because I've seen it in you.
Oh, sure. I see it in myself. It's something to do with the way America thinks it's the greatest country in the world and all this stuff. It's that the world is ours for the taking. It's kind of like, I mean, we've been watching Attack on Titan. It's like what Aaron says. And as we've been watching Attack on Titan, I've been thinking, this resonates with me so strongly. I was born into this world, and God damn it, I'm gonna make a good life out of it. No matter what gets in my way, because that is my right as a person who's alive. And it's something that a lot of other countries, maybe because of the amount of history everywhere else has, it's like America hasn't had time to get our spirits crushed.
But that's the thing, right? Of
Yeah.
like, America does have history, but
Yes.
the history is so murky.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
But it's like this, I admire it. Like, I actually admire it because I don't see it anywhere else. I don't see it. I have not met any other version or culture of people that have the kind of optimism that things are going to work out no matter what. And I actually admire it. I actually admire that way of thinking because I think it's extremely hard to maintain, especially when I believe that the world is chaos and chaos is around all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So to sort of maintain that way of thinking is almost like, oh shit, it's something to aspire to. I guess the idea of the American dream that even Trump keeps harping on about, where I go, yeah, okay, yeah, that thing that's promised.
It's a beautiful ideal. It's been corrupted so much.
But I like the idea.
Yeah.
I really like the idea, which I don't think a lot of countries and other cultures have. But you see it in Sally. You definitely see it in Sally, where it's like, I'm going to be a star. And it's going to work out. It doesn't matter that... Oh, does she even mention the Nazis?
No. Not really. At one point, when she doesn't directly mention the Nazis, she mentions what happens because of the Nazis. It's after Brian and Sally have been hanging out with Max, and they come back to the apartment, and Sally's packing for Africa because he's like, Max is going to take them to Africa. And Brian is lashing out at her because he's jealous, and she's acting all idealistic. She's off in her own world. Everything's going to be great. And he starts lashing out at her, saying that she's living in a delusion and she's always being playful and she's not being realistic. And that's the scene when they reveal to each other that they've had this thing with him. And for this is what it is. Brian says that she keeps playing at this femme fatale, and he says, "You're about as fatale as an after-dinner mint." And then at one point she says, well, you're nothing like Maximilian. He's exactly who you want to be, but exactly who you aren't. He's wealthy, he's charming, and he knows how to treat a woman. And Brian answers, screw Maximilian. And she says, I do. And he takes that for a moment, and then he says, so do I. And she's broken up about it. She's like, how could you do that to me?
Because that's a comeback. That's a comeback.
It's such a great tit for tat.
It was the shot, the scene when they're in Max's big mansion.
Yes.
And they'd been drinking.
Yes.
And who's on the piano? I forgot. Someone's on the piano. Oh, it's Max and Sally on the piano.
Yeah.
And you see Brian on the sofa. He's drunk. And it's this incredible wide shot. Mm-hmm. And they're in different spaces. And you're seeing Brian absolutely drunk. And he falls asleep.
Yeah.
And the two notice it.
God, that scene is so brilliant.
And they walk off.
The layers. Brian's all drunk on the couch, and he's like, he's gonna take us to Africa. It's ridiculous. And then he goes up and tries to butt his way into it because he's like, you two, wake up, I'm here too. He pours another drink, they all start dancing, and that's when they all join together, and they're all hugging with each other.
That's when the shot happened.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, you can feel the tension between all of them here. But Brian, at that moment, rejects it. The music cuts off, and they're left alone there, and then he rejects it and walks back to the couch and falls asleep. And then, Sally and Max go off and have their thing.
That was a brilliant scene.
Oh, it's so good.
And it looked beautiful as well. It was well lit. The music as well, especially when it cuts off, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Where you go, oh, the disconnect, the dissonance that's happening right now in this moment between all the characters. And that's where it threw me off, because in the moment when all three of them are embracing, I'm kind of going, oh, is a three-way about to happen here? But then when Brian rejects, that's when I go, oh, I guess it's not happening. But then later on, when he reveals that it's actually he's been with Max, I'm like,
It could have happened.
Wait, what? Do you think it happened, or is he lying?
No, I do think that he hooked up with Max.
Okay.
Because Max is also showering him with gifts. He gives him the golden cigarette case and everything.
And he gives him the sweater, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The blue sweater.
Literally tossing his wealth around like that.
Of which Max mentions that he's married.
Yeah.
But his wife isn't around.
His wife spends time elsewhere, and he says that we have a very good understanding with each other. It seems like it's a marriage of convenience for both of them, and they agree that, okay, well, you live your life and I'll live mine. And whatever happens, happens.
Must be nice being rich to do shit like that.
Yeah.
Like, fuck. But there's a moment when Brian is walking down the street and he sees these Nazis spewing out all these conspiracy theories about Jews.
Jews and communists.
And they're giving out pamphlets.
Yeah.
And he's trying to disrupt it. He gets his ass kicked. But what I was thinking in that moment was this thing about conspiracy theories. That it's always been around. Propaganda has always been around. And if people spew it, eventually people believe it.
Yeah. We see it right towards the end. Sally and Brian are walking back into their apartment complex, and there's the two old women out there, and then there's this old guy out there who's talking with these old women, and he's going on about this nonsense, which is like, no, it's true. The Jewish bankers and the communists are in league with each other, and they're trying to destroy us and take all of our money and destroy our way of life. And one of the old women asks him, why would Jewish bankers and communists be in league with each other? That makes no fucking sense, man. And he's like, it's true, they're out to get us. And Brian walks in and says that, yes, you have all your conspiracies. When you're part of a conspiracy yourself, the International Society of Horses' Asses. But it gets into people's minds. It's making this enemy to fear, and no matter what logic says, no matter what facts say, people buy into it because it makes their lives seem manageable.
This is the scary thing, right?
Yeah.
Where, okay, obviously you have at that point, especially in the moment that I mentioned, with the people are putting out pamphlets
Yeah.
and, you know, if they wanted to grow the party, they would go door to door and stuff like that. But I sort of feel like in our age, and I was having a conversation today about this actually, which is because the world is so it's changing, it's changed and it continue to change because of the internet. But then now you've added AI, so we don't. It's still a new thing for human beings to know how to deal with. We thought we were getting to a point where we sort of realized, oh, actually, there is this thing called misinformation and disinformation, and people will say this. But then when you add AI and you can't really tell if what you're watching is real or not.
Yeah.
And not only that, but if you're flooded, whether it's on social media, whether it's on YouTube, heck, it might even be news. Because I get notifications about news articles on my phone, but who knows if it's real? If it's not coming from a reputable source, I can think, okay, that's not coming from whatever BBC, Sky News, or CNN, whatever. But for other people, if they're getting that, they'll just go, "Oh, did you see this?"
Yep.
And then suddenly it's that way of how can you fight against propaganda when the mechanisms of flooding that propaganda are so sophisticated now, and you don't really need human beings to sort of push it out.
Yeah.
It's just, it can constantly be flashed in your face, and then gradually and surely you will end up thinking and believing things. Like, take what you said before about the Elon Musk thing, right?
Yeah.
If you saw it with your own eyes, you go, that's a Nazi salute.
Yeah.
But then if everyone is saying, no, it's something else, he's doing something else, eventually you're going to go, oh yeah, he's doing something else.
Even if it's just they flash the question enough, you just see enough headlines that go, was this a Nazi salute?
Exactly.
Like, the headline purely designed for clicks, like, did he really do a Nazi salute? Click this and read more to find out. And the article doesn't actually say anything. You see that enough times, and that question will now be in your mind, and the doubt will be in place.
And how do you handle that? That's the scary thing. Of how do you handle that? After a certain amount of time when people are flooded with this thing, especially, I look at the kids. The kids are the ones I'm most afraid of. Because they're not at a point of understanding what this machine is. To them, it's just a toy. It's just something that they can connect with, which is why I will never, ever get TikTok.
Absolutely not.
Because when I see the shit I hate when I'm on the tube is people just scrolling.
Yep.
All the time. And you're like, my God, you've been on this ride for 15 minutes and you haven't stopped scrolling. And the algorithm is different for every single person. So you don't even know what they're watching. That's the scary thing. That's when I watch this film, I go, fuck.
Yep.
Fuck.
And it makes me think of the Cabaret itself, the Kit Kat Club, and people getting entertained by all these light performances and laughing at it and not really thinking about what's going on right next to them. Can we talk about the number If You Could See Her?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's right towards the end of the movie. It's the second to last number, actually. And it's the MC
dancing around the stage, singing this song. If you could see her, where are the lyrics?
Yeah, bring the lyrics up.
Yeah.
Do you remember how it goes?
Dancing. I can't remember the exact tune. I have the lyrics here. He's dancing around, talking about, I know what you're thinking, you wondered why I chose her. All the ladies in the world, that's just a first impression. What's a good impression? If you knew her like I do, it would change your point of view. If you could see her through my eyes, you wouldn't wonder at all. And the whole thing is, if you could see her through my eyes, she'd be beautiful, you wouldn't wonder. And it's a woman in a gorilla costume on stage. Eating a banana and everything, and it's like, it really is like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, guy. What did you think when you first saw that?
I had an inclination.
Yeah.
I was like, is this supposed to be a Jew?
And that's the last lines of the song. It's all this stuff about if you could see her through my eyes, you'd understand exactly what I do. I understand your objection. I grant you the problem is not small, but if you could see her through my eyes, and then he looks to the crowd and whispers, she wouldn't look Jewish at all.
And they all laugh.
They laugh.
They all laugh. Which was the interesting thing. Because when it started, I was like, oh, is the gorilla supposed to be a Jew? Because if I was writing it, I'd be like, oh, okay. How can I subvert the audience to take this thing, but I'm actually trying to represent it in a different way? I'm like, okay, I'm trying to link to their own prejudice of how they see other people.
Just like in a vacuum, it is so satirical, clearly.
Yeah.
Of this thing. But then you see the reaction, and it's like, no, these people are taking it exactly at face value.
Yeah. Instead of actually, because I think it's a beautiful song.
Yeah, it's a great little song.
It's a beautiful song, and it actually, once you understand it, you kind of go, like the repetition of the phrase, if you could see her through my eyes, you would love her too. And it's that thing of how people perceive other people. If the characters perceive the Jews as, ugly, big gorillas.
Subhuman monsters.
But it's not about that. It's that they're more, But it's... This is one of those things where you go... Unfortunately, I believe that a lot of people do look at other people in that way. They do look at other people as subhuman.
Yeah.
There was an incident today that occurred, and I won't get into the details.
Sure.
But towards the end, one of the people were asked, if you don't respect other people's appearance and religions, put your hand up. And one person put their hand up. And I looked at them, and I was like, Now, first of all, I actually respected the honesty.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, you're honest. You don't respect other people's religion or views, what they look like. You're honest. Then another thought went, there's other people in this room who feel the exact same way that person does. But they're not being honest. And this is where it goes back to how I look at what the future's going to bring and why I'm scared for the kids. Because I think we're heading towards people looking at other peoples as subhuman gorillas. And maybe it's always been that thing. It's human nature. Maybe. I don't know. Look out throughout history, that's how we've treated each other. So maybe it's innately who we are.
I think it's an inherent weakness of humanity. Yeah, what worries me is that these days, that sentiment, however few people actually fully believe in that sentiment, their voices can get amplified so much by the internet that I think most people don't even think about that. I think most people generally will treat anyone they come across as another person because they're just trying to live their life. But if the tide starts turning, then they won't think against that tide. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm reading 48 Laws of Power right now.
Yeah.
And one of the stories was about this guy who used to work for Stalin.
Yeah.
He was talking to a crowd, and somebody in the crowd said, "Why didn't you stand up to Stalin? But you're standing up now." And then the guy at the podium said, "Who said that?" And no one said anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy went, "That's why." Because fear of going against the tide is so prevalent in human nature. People don't want to. That's why it's so scary. Is that once people see where the tide is turning, it's the hard thing to do is to say, "This is fucked up." Remember that incident that occurred when we first started? When I spoke up?
Yeah.
And no one else spoke out. But then afterwards, a bunch of people would come up to me and be like, "I was thinking the exact same thing." And you go, "But you didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
You let me die when you were thinking the exact same thing that I was willing to say."
Mm-hmm.
And that's just human nature. It's just human nature. Oh, God. Anything else you want to say?
About Cabaret. There are a few things I want to touch on. I think we've chewed on most of the meat, but then there's a few movie making things. This is directed by Bob Fosse, who's a legendary Broadway choreographer and director. Mostly Broadway shows. He only ever directed 2 or 3 movies. This is one of them. One of the other ones is All That Jazz, which is a semi-autobiographical movie. It is also amazing. That's a brilliant, fantastic movie. But he was mostly like a choreographer and theater director. The way he transitioned to movie making, just the ease and the fluidity that he knew exactly what to do with this medium, I think is
Was
brilliant.
this his first film?
This is his first movie.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, just that opening shot of the warped reflective surface, and you can't quite tell what it is, and then suddenly the MC appears in this
Yeah.
section perfectly in focus. And it's just like, oh, okay, we're in a movie now. Throughout the whole movie, he uses negative space of the frame so well. The first time I noticed it was when Sally is showing Brian around her apartment for the first time. She's putting on some music, and it cuts up, and there's a lampshade covering like 70% of the frame, and we only see half of her face as she's coyly looking at him and asking this question. And it's a great way to get into her character, and it's just a brilliant shot as well. And a few other shots, like you mentioned, at Max's place when they're all drunk, and it's the wide of he's on the couch and they're in the background dancing, and they're in completely different worlds in exactly the same room. There's another one where, when does it happen? One moment.
I'm just going to quickly bring up
Yes.
the set design
Oh, yeah.
throughout the film, which was fantastic. Going from the house that Sally and Brian stay in, which looks derelict. It looks very subpar. But then when you go to the Kit Kat Club, you've got this beautiful show that's going on, but there's something very petite and very. When I look at something visually, I always think about like, oh, what does it smell like? What can I taste? And the Kit Kat Club, I felt like I could taste the sweat.
Yeah.
The audience is really next to the stage. They're not far. It's very intimate space. But then you move into some of the grander interior shots of whether it's Natalia's house or Baron's house, and you sort of see it open up, and then you see the vast difference in people's wealth. But then the outside, which is one of the, when you watch old films, because we weren't there and we don't have an idea of what it was like, it's always interesting to me how you can watch something and you sort of, it gives you an idea of how something felt.
Yeah.
I could understand how Berlin felt, whether it was how the streets were designed, the dirt, like the shot of the person who was dead in the street and people around him, but then you see the whole street's pretty quiet. But then the buildings are tall and massive, and it's just this feel that I get throughout this film about how Berlin felt.
Yeah.
That you sort of feel in it, and that was brilliant. I don't know who did the set design, but it was just, it was brilliant.
Yeah. The detail of everything, it's so lived in.
Yeah.
All the little knickknacks in Sally's apartment. Yeah, just really well done.
Shots.
Yes, it's right after Sally finds out she's pregnant, and she's talking with Brian's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. The doctor says you could do it, but I'm gonna have to give up this fur coat to pay for it. And they walk back into their apartment, and it's an angled shot of the hallway of their apartment because they live right across from one another. And Sally goes into her apartment, and he goes into his, and it's angled so that, again, most of the frame, like 70% of the frame, is just the wall of the hallway that we're in. They're off to one side, and they go into their own little worlds, and you can tell that there's this tension between them, this sort of distance, but then he goes back out and he crosses back into hers, and that's when they have that little party between them that night where they're playing around, and he's shirtless with the tie on, and they're talking about how they're going to live a great life and raise the kid and all of that stuff. And it's just the way that builds this tension and this separation between them by separating us, the audience, from these two characters that we're on to care about. It's brilliant.
Bob Fosse clearly had, as I say had, is he dead?
He's dead, yeah.
But he clearly had great sensitivity to storytelling.
Yeah. It's in his bones.
It's in his bones. And you can tell it. If this was his first film, and you could not tell that.
No.
You could not tell this is a first-time filmmaker.
But some people who've been doing it their whole careers don't make movies this good.
No.
The way he uses intercutting to juxtapose between different things that are happening. The first time I really noticed it was when it's a number at the club, and all the dancers are in like lederhosen and traditional German wear. And the MC is having fun, and it's like he's ham-boning and slapping them, and it's just this very playful, slapsticky thing. That is happening as the owner of the club is getting beaten up by Nazis. And it's the old German tradition and the new German tradition slowly creeping its way in. I've talked about how the MC keeps popping in, his face keeps showing up every now and then. There's another really powerful time when Sally and Brian are preparing to go spend the weekend with Max and at the club, and the MC is sticking his tongue out at her and taunting her, and then she sticks her tongue out back at him. But then we see the guy with the ventriloquist dummy.
Oh, yeah.
Who's in the club occasionally, and it's just a shot of him, his face, slightly out of focus in the background, and ventriloquist dummy, almost half its face cut off right in the forefront of the frame, like judging what's happening, judging these two about to be taken on this opulent display of wealth, kind of judging Sally for going along with it so easily. And the ventriloquist dummy opens its mouth, just like a, huh, what's going on? All like it's raising its eyebrows. And then as they go on, it's just stone face there. And it's just another haunting shot of like, ugh. It's unsettling and very, very powerful. Yeah, great movie making in this. Anything else that I wanted to say? That's most of my notes. I could still talk about various bits of this movie for ages. Oh, yeah? You go.
I was gonna say final thoughts.
Final thoughts? Most of my final thoughts are... It's the final number of the show, Cabaret. And it's Sally singing, and she and Brian, who said their goodbyes, they've decided that she's not gonna go, and he's gonna go back to England, and they go to the train station, and she says, I'll see you, and she walks away. And you can tell that they're both a bit broken up about it, but they both know that it's what they have to do. And then we see her back on stage at the Kit Kat Club performing solo in this amazing dress, and she's just killing it up there. And it's the lyrics of the song, what good is sitting alone in your room? Come hear the music play. Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret. Come taste the wine, come hear the band, come blow your horn, start celebrating, right this way, your table's waiting. Part of the verse is a story, and it says, I used to have this girlfriend known as Elsie, with whom I shared assorted rooms in Chelsea. She wasn't what you'd call a blushing flower. As a matter of fact, she rented by the hour, as in she was a prostitute. The day she died, the neighbors came to snicker. Well, that is what comes from too much pills and liquor. But when I saw her laid out like a queen, she was the happiest corpse I'd ever seen. I think of Elsie to this very day. I remember how she'd turn to me and say, what good is sitting alone in your room? Come hear the music play. Life's a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret. And as for me, I made my mind up back in Chelsea. When I go, I'm going like Elsie. Start by admitting from cradle to tomb, this isn't that long a stay. Life is a cabaret, old chum. It's only a cabaret, old chum, and I love the cabaret. And, I mean, that song right there is all of Sally's character. And I kind of love that philosophy.
It's a great philosophy to have. My final thoughts. Listen,
Yeah.
it's a great film. It's a brilliant film. And if you think that it's purely a musical and you're not really into musicals, I highly recommend this film.
Yeah.
It's powerful in a way that you wouldn't expect. It's tragic, but it's optimistic as well. And if you haven't seen it, please watch it. If you have seen it, watch it again.
Watch it again. Just for Liza, if anything, because she's so goddamn good in it.
She's amazing in it. But it's a cautionary tale that I feel people just need to be aware of. Because it can happen. Life can change very quick. Very quick. And it's a slice of life. We all have dreams. We all have things that happen. We don't know why they happen. But we're all off in our own little worlds and we meet people. And I think that's sort of the thing about this film. Is that you have these characters that meet and come together. And they have these moments that are so profoundly beautiful. also sad
And fleeting.
and fleeting. Almost like the breath comes and goes. I don't know why I just said that. I've been thinking a lot about breath. And I haven't formed all my thoughts yet. I've been thinking a lot about it. But yeah. I hope you've listened till the end. If you haven't, you have if you're hearing this.
Yeah, if you haven't, you don't know what we're saying about you. Fuck you. Go fuck yourself.
Listen to the other 2 episodes we've got up,
Yeah, Magnolia and In the Heat of the Night.
which are 2 other brilliant films.
Only good movies here.
Only, well, for now, so far.
Oh, there's gonna be a time when we can really get some meat out of a
Yes.
piece of shit.
But next week, actually, I think, dependent, this episode and the next episode might drop together. Am I wrong?
I was planning on just finishing the edit tonight.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you hear this first, and then, yeah, I'm not gonna say what the next one is.
Nope.
Not gonna say what the next one is, but hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. Listen to the other episodes, and we'll be back next week with another episode. I said another episode a few too many times. But stay healthy, stay prosperous. Love.
Auf Wiedersehen. We'll name this podcast later.